too hot.
It's too hot. Hot weather. Hello humans, my name is Dael Kingsmill. I'm bringing you a story from Mythology today. The last video I did, like a bit over a week ago, was kind of a mishmash of my Mythology stuff and my D&D stuff, and it made me nostalgic for that time I talked about the Seven Against Thebes. People have been here for a while, might remember that. It was one of my early videos over on the Geek and Sundry Vlogs channel. Maybe one of my favorites I've ever done. I am skipping over the story of Oedipus for this. Have I ever actually done Oedipus? I've done Antigone, and I remember saying I was skipping Oedipus in that. I've done Seven Against Thebes, and I skipped Oedipus for that. Have I ever done Oedipus? Have I just never done it? No, because I remember having drawn a picture of Oedipus like poking Tiresias in the head with a stick. I must have done it sometime. But you know most of the story. I mean, the gist is Oedipus, when he's born, there's a prophecy that he's gonna murder his dad and marry his mum. And through a series of unfortunate events, despite his best efforts, that prophecy does come true for Oedipus. As it all culminates, he stabs out his eyes and he wanders through the desert in exile until he dies. I only laugh because that is so grim. Anyway, so Oedipus had two sons, right? Polynices and Eteocles. They weren't like super sympathetic to Oedipus's plight, and so when Oedipus died out in the desert, he did one of them classic Greek myth death curses, the inescapable ones, you know. He declares that his sons will be cursed to kill one another, and then he dies. And with Oedipus dead, Polynices and Eteocles both inherit the throne of Thebes. They don't want to fight over who gets to be king, so they're like, you know what we should do? We should do it like, we should share. Right? We'll do a timeshare, we'll trade off every year. Great, they say, great idea, big fan, love it. Eteocles goes first, and he immediately declares himself sole ruler of Thebes, and he exiles Polynices, because he can do that now. He's the king, he has that power. And so Polynices flees to Argos to stay with King Adrastus. Adrastus listens to Polynices' tale and is very eager and enthusiastic about the idea of vengeance, of justice, of winning back this exiled prince's kingdom for him. And so Adrastus calls together, he summons a super squad of 7 champions to help take back the city of Thebes and put it in Polynices' hands. So the list contained Polynices and Adrastus themselves, of course, the exiled prince and the veteran ally. The two of them would act as leaders of the group. Then there was Capaneus, the muscle, Tydeus, also the muscle, Parthenopaeus, the muscle, Amphiaraus, the brains, and finally Hippomedon, the muscle. Now, Amphiaraus was a gifted seer, so gifted that he foresaw that this was bad. It was a bad idea. Right from the start, he's there going, we shouldn't do this. We're not coming back. Adrastus is the only one who will come home if we do this. So Amphiaraus flat refuses to go. Seems sensible when you're a psychic and you've predicted your own demise. But Adrastus is like, that seems worth the risk to me, because of course he would say that. And so the two of them start quarreling. Here's the thing though. Amphiaraus was married to Adrastus' sister, and way back when, the two men had been fighting about something and had ended up coming to an agreement. They both swore that whenever they fought over something, they would consult this woman who has a name, I've forgotten it, I think it starts with E. They would consult her, and whatever she decided was the course of action, that's the thing they would do. Whoever she sided with, they had to agree to it. They both swore to it, pinky promise. The idea being that she was equally biased to both of them. It had worked out pretty well so far, except that Tydeus, he knew about it, see? And he tells Polynices about this little arrangement. And so Polynices approaches woman whose name might start with E, and he promises to gift her the legendary necklace of Harmonia, crafted by Hephaestus himself. It was an old family heirloom. Polynices had swiped it on his way out the kingdom, and he was like, you side with us going to war, and it is yours. He clearly did not mention the bit where the necklace was totally cursed, bad curse times. So she sides with Adrastus and says to her husband Amphiaraus, you have to go to war, because this is beautiful. And Amphiaraus is just like, Tydeus, you bastard. There's some weddings and people get married and a baby gets bitten by a snake and they have funeral games. Polynices goes to try and convince Mycenae to fight on their side, but Zeus throws some thunderbolts and is like, don't do it, and so Mycenae doesn't do it. We're skipping all that stuff. We're skipping to the good bits. And the question becomes, who will win? The city of Thebes or 7 muscly boys? But there's no point beating around the bush. Amphiaraus already predicted the outcome, so I'll just tell you now, they're all gonna die, one by one. Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die. As far as the internet can tell, that's the only song I know. Capaneus is up first. He was not a modest man. In fact, he had a personalized shield which it bore the image of himself, naked. He was on fire. He was carrying a flaming torch. And there was like a speech bubble that contained him screaming the words, "I will burn this city!" And so Capaneus tried, possibly naked and carrying a torch, to scale the walls and burn the city. He screamed the words, "I will burn this city, and even Zeus cannot stop me," and immediately got struck by lightning. Mistake! Okay, 6 against Thebes, then. That's fine, that's alright. Parthenopaeus was the son of Atalanta, and probably Meleager, so he's real handy with a bow, but he's also basically a hella rash teenager. Atalanta's back home, she's tossing and turning, she's having nightmares in bed about Parthenopaeus dying, and so she prays to Artemis to keep him safe. So Artemis is there, invisible on the battlefield, doing her best to look out for this kid, until Ares, also invisible. This happens in battle sequences in classical mythology a lot. Read the Aeneid. So anyway, that thing's happening, and Ares shows up, also invisible, and forces Artemis to quit the field. And so now Parthenopaeus is on his own. Up until now, he's been having a great time, picking people off, shooting them with his bow, until his tutor, Dorcius, who is there for some reason, decides to kill his buzz. He's like, dude, just cool your jets a bit, simmer down. And Parthenopaeus is like, quit being such a Dorcius, and a rock falls on him, a big boulder. He gets crushed by a rock. Rocks fall, you die. 5 champions against Thebes. Tydeus is a brilliant warrior, partly because he's won the favor of Athena. So Tydeus is making incredible progress on the battlefield just by calling out individual soldiers and challenging them to one-on-one fights to the death, mano a mano. He's got a nice mound of bodies growing underneath him when finally someone gets a stab in. Tydeus has been mortally wounded, so Athena rushes up to Olympus to petition the gods, and particularly Zeus, to let her bring him an elixir that will not only heal Tydeus's wounds, but will also grant him immortality, so they could hang out forever. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, remember how Amphiaraus was super mad at Tydeus and like hates him now because it's his fault that Amphiaraus had to come? Yeah, Amphiaraus isn't like super stoked at the premise of Tydeus getting to be immortal. He goes and he kills the enemy who had stabbed Tydeus, kills him, cuts off his head, and brings it back to Tydeus and says, yo, look, I got revenge for you. Catch, chucks him the head, and just starts chanting, chug, 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 chug. And Tydeus does. He cracks open the skull and starts drinking brains. Athena shows back up, elixir in hand. She'd done it, she'd made it. She's finally here. Sees this disgusting display. She's so grossed out, she does an immediate 180, pours the elixir out onto the dirt, and lets Tydeus bleed out. There's this great statue or relief or something. It's got Tydeus like gnawing on the head, like and then in the background, Athena's there like, ugh. All right, 4 muscly boys. They can do this. Hippomedon sees Tydeus finally die out on the field, and he tries to get to the body before the Thebans can take it. But it doesn't work out. There are a lot of very angry enemy soldiers to contend with, and slowly as he fights, he gets pushed back further and further into the river Ismenus. During this fighting, Hippomedon happened to incidentally kill Cranaeus. Cranaeus was the son of the river nymph Ismenus, whose father was the river spirit Ismenus. I know, I hear it too. Oedipus's daughter, Ismene, is actually here. She's in Thebes right now. And really, I feel like she should just come on out, join the party. And when Ismenus, the nymph, not the other ones, sees her son's body on the riverbank, she asks her father to avenge Cranaeus. So Ismenus floods his waters and begins drowning Hippomedon in his heavy armor. Hippomedon's drowning. He prays to the Olympian gods, please don't let me die like this. This is so unheroic. Hera takes pity. She talks to Zeus. She's like, look, I know that these guys are all idiots, but I mean, it's a simple request. Don't let him die like this. So Zeus is like, fine, convinces Ismenus to like drop it. And Hippomedon receives the divine inspiration required to remember to just take his armor off. Phew, he thinks as he swims upwards. That was a close call. And as he resurfaces and comes up out of the water without any armor on, he's pierced by like 1,000 enemy arrows, like a Boromir number of arrows. Then there were 3. Adrastus, who had so enthusiastically spearheaded this whole thing at the beginning. He looks around at all of the other champions dying, thinks big yikes, and he decides to leg it. He probably wouldn't have escaped, except, lucky for him, he rides the horse Arion. It's an immortal horse. It's the son of Poseidon and Demeter, swiftest horse ever. And I'm so sure, I know that I got this from somewhere, but I've like changed up my books since the last time I did this video, but I remember distinctly that Arion has 2 human feet on his right-hand side and can speak human. I know that I'm not making that up. While Adrastus is fleeing, Amphiaraus is riding around in his chariot trying not to die. He didn't even want to be here. Now he's racing around with his charioteer buddy. This opposing champion guy who's the son of Poseidon is pursuing him relentlessly. He's about to throw a spear through Amphiaraus' back, but just as he let it fly, Zeus hurls down another thunderbolt. This is a very stormy battlefield. Given the back and forth of the gods on who they're siding with for this particular story, I don't know if he was aiming for Amphiaraus or not. But what does happen is that the lightning bolt hits the ground in front of the chariot and the ground opens up and it swallows whole Amphiaraus and his friend and the chariot. Let me make this clear. Amphiaraus is not dead. He did not die. He never died. He's just kind of lost in the underworld as a living person. Still alive, adrift in Hades. What a fate. So what happened to Polynices in amongst all this? Well, at some point partway through, he went and he challenged his brother Eteocles to a duel, to single combat, directly saying that whoever wins this fight is the king of Thebes, so we can stop further bloodshed. Eteocles graciously accepts and the 2 of them fight until that pesky curse comes into play. And they both kill each other. Creon, their uncle, walks in, sees the dead bodies, and he's like, oh, geez, come on. I mean, what a mess. And Creon declares himself king, so he can put a stop to this nonsense. And then he forbids the proper disposal of the bodies of the 7, and that's how Antigone happens. Anyway, that's the 7 Against Thebes. A pack of morons try to assault a city. If this story were written as part of a different genre, it could have been just like a Fast and the Furious movie. Just give them more chariots. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that. If you did, you know how the internet works. I am almost certainly forgetting something that I need to tell you, but since I can't remember it, I do believe that's it. I'm done. Email this to your grandma and I will see you some other time.